Hi, this is Shannon from No Shelf Control. Thanks for joining me on the channel. I have exciting news. The April Book of the Month book selections are out and they are tremendous this month. So I can't wait to tell you all about them. There are 7 choices that you can choose from this month. And I will tell you about each one, give you a little taste of what Book of the Month has to say about them, and then also read you the synopsis. So let's go ahead and get started. The first one is called Camp Zero, and it is by Michelle Min Sterling. The quick take from Book of the Month says, "Don't be fooled by the floating cities and brain implants. This mysterious polar camp riven by inequality is no utopia." So that's interesting. It also says that we should be aware that it includes multiple viewpoints, a slow build, the tech world, and immigration. And it is being published April 4th, 2023. So you can get these a little early through Book of the Month Club. It's published by Atria Books, and it's 304 pages. And here's the synopsis. This is Camp Zero by Michelle Min Sterling. In a near-future northern settlement, a handful of climate change survivors find their fates intertwined in this mesmerizing and transportive novel in the vein of Station 11 and The Power. In the far north of Canada sits Camp Zero, an American building project hiding many secrets. Desperate to help her climate-displaced Korean immigrant mother, Rose agrees to travel to Camp Zero and spy on its architect in exchange for housing. She arrives at the same time as another newcomer, a college professor named Grant, who is determined to flee his wealthy family's dark legacy. Gradually, they realize that there is more to the architect than previously thought, and a disturbing mystery lurks beneath the surface of the camp. At the same time, rumors abound of an elite group of women soldiers living and working at a nearby Cold War-era climate research station. What are they doing there, and who is leading them? An electrifying page-turner where nothing is as it seems, Camp Zero cleverly explores how the intersection of gender, class, and migration will impact who and what will survive in a warming world. So if you remember correctly, I received this book through Goodreads giveaways as an e-arc, and we talked about it a little before on the channel, but now it's been selected as a Book of the Month Club pick. Obviously, I don't have to pick it, but it sounds like a great choice. So I do wonder what it means to be, what was the phrase that they used? Climate displaced, desperate to help her climate displaced Korean immigrant mother. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with the climate that actually displaces people. If it's flooding, if it's fire, what's going on with the climate. So curious about that. The next one is Romantic Comedy by Curtis Sittenfeld. Curtis Sittenfeld is one of my favorite authors. I have read several things that she has written. You Think It, I'll Say It. The one that is supposed to be a sort of fictional retelling of the life of George W. Bush. Loved that one. Can't think of the name of it right now. American Family? American President? I can't remember. But it's a Curtis Sittenfeld book. Really good. Want to read Botm by Curtis Sittenfeld, but haven't gotten there yet. But this is Romantic Comedy. The quick take from Book of the Month Club says 2 minutes to showtime. Romance? Check. Comedy? Check. Midlife crises? Workplace antics? Big feels and feminism? Check. And it says, good to know, romance, it's a light read, it's quirky, and movie-ish. So we'll see what movie-ish means, but I'm excited about this one. The synopsis for this one, this book is also going to be published April 4th, 2023 by Random House, and it is 320 pages. So here's the synopsis. A comedy writer thinks she's sworn off love until a dreamily handsome pop star flips the script on all her assumptions. Romantic Comedy is a hilariously observant and deeply tender novel from New York Times bestselling author Curtis Sittenfeld. Sally Milts is a sketch writer for the Night Owls, the late-night live comedy show that airs each Saturday. With a couple of heartbreaks under her belt, she's long abandoned the search for love. settling instead for the occasional hookup, career success, and a close relationship with her stepfather to round out a satisfying life. But when Sally's friend and fellow writer Danny Horst begins dating Annabelle, a glamorous actor who guest hosted the show, he joins the not-so-exclusive group of talented but average-looking and even dorky men at the show, and in society at large, who've gotten romantically involved with incredibly beautiful and accomplished women. Sally channels her annoyance into a sketch called the Danny Horst Rule, poking fun at this phenomenon while underscoring how unlikely it is that the reverse would ever happen for a woman. Enter Noah Brewster. Enter Noah Brewster, a pop music sensation with a reputation for dating models who signed on as both host and musical guest for this week's show. Dazzled by his charms, Sally hits it off with Noah instantly, and as they collaborate on one sketch after another, she begins to wonder whether there might actually be sparks flying. But this isn't a romantic comedy, it's real life. And in real life, someone like him would never date someone like her, right? With her keen observations and trademark ability to bring complex women to life on the page, Sittenfeld explores the neurosis-inducing and heart-fluttering wonder of love while slyly dissecting the social rituals of romance and gender relations in the modern age. So this reminds me a little bit of Saturday Night Live, which of course I'm sure it's supposed to. Sittenfeld loves to take things that are in the popular culture and fictionalize them. And then Danny Horst, of course, sounds a little bit like Pete Davidson and his relationship with the Kardashian. But I love Curtis Sittenfeld. Can't wait to find out more about this book, get my hands on it. I usually ask you guys what I should pick for my Book of the Month selection, but I think you know I'm going to pick that one, and then I'll pick 2 add-ons. So I'd love to hear which of these you think I should choose as my add-ons. But Curtis Sittenfeld is definitely going in the box. Let's see. So what is next? We have The Only Survivors by Megan Miranda. You may know Megan Miranda from some of her other thriller books. The quick take on this one is a group bound by a decades-old pact and survivor's guilt reunite at a remote island house in this taut, twisty tale. And the Good to Knows from Book of the Month Club says it's a non-linear timeline, teens, a whodunit, and it's rugged. So that's an interesting description. Let's look at what we know about this book. Going to be published April 11th, 2023 by Scribner Mary Sue Rucci Books, and it is 352 pages. So let's look at the synopsis. This synopsis says, a mystery about a group of former classmates who reunite to mark the 10th anniversary of a tragic accident, only to have one of the survivors disappear, casting fear and suspicion on the original tragedy. 7 hours in the past, 7 days in the present, 7 survivors remaining. Who would you save? A decade ago, 2 vans filled with high school seniors on a school service trip crashed into a Tennessee ravine, a tragedy that claimed the lives of multiple classmates and teachers. The 9 students who managed to escape the river that night were irrevocably changed. A year later, after one of the survivors dies by suicide on the anniversary of the crash, the rest of them make a pact to come together each year to commemorate that terrible night, to keep one another safe, to hold one another accountable, or both. Their annual meeting place, a house on the Outer Banks, has long been a refuge, but by the 10th anniversary, Cassidy Bent has worked to distance herself from the tragedy and from the other survivors. She's changed her mobile number. She's blocked the others' email addresses. This year, she is determined to finally break ties once and for all. But on the day of the reunion, she receives a text with an obituary attached. Another survivor is gone. Now they are 7. And Cassidy finds herself hurling back toward the group, wild with grief and suspicion. Almost immediately, something feels off this year. Cassidy is the first to notice when Amaya, annual organizer, slips away, overwhelmed. This wouldn't raise alarm except for the impending storm. Suddenly, they're facing the threat of closed roads and surging waters again. Then Amaya stops responding to her phone. After all they've been through, she wouldn't willfully make them worry, would she? And as they promised long ago, each survivor will do whatever he or she can do to save one another. Won't they? So this one sounds really good. Thrillers are sort of on my list, but maybe not my top choice. But I don't know, this one sounds really good. Also, as you know, I'm a Notre Dame grad, and there was a bus crash with the swim team when I was a freshman that reminds me a little bit of the premise here. Of course, it didn't, the bus, it was in the snow. It didn't fall into a ravine. But just an interesting premise, and I'll be interested to see what happens with the rest of this book. So, what do we have next? We have Hang the Moon, and Hang the Moon is by one of my favorites, Jeanette Walls. I don't know. I'm not being very coy about what I'm going to choose for my box, but that's okay. So, Hang the Moon by Jeanette Walls. Book of the Month Club says, this moving Prohibition-era family saga and its feisty heroine have all the grit and complexity of good moonshine. The Good to Know says, famous author, family drama, rural, and literary. So definitely a famous author. Love Jeanette Walls. And so let's see what we know about this book. Published March 28th, 2023, so just a couple of days ago, by Scribner, and it's 368 pages. Here's what we know about it. A riveting new novel about an indomitable young woman in Virginia during Prohibition. Most folk thought Sally Kincaid was a nobody who'd amount to nothing. Sally had other plans. Sally Kincaid is the daughter of the biggest man in a small town, the charismatic Duke Kincaid. Born at the turn of the 20th century into a life of comfort and privilege, Sally remembers little about her mother, who died in a violent argument with the Duke. By the time she's just 8 years old, the Duke has remarried and had a son, Eddie. While Sally is her father's daughter, sharp-witted and resourceful, Eddie is his mother's son, timid and cerebral. When Sally tries to teach young Eddie to be more like their father, her daredevil coaching leads to an accident, and Sally is cast out. 9 years later, she returns, determined to reclaim her place in the family. There's a lot more complicated than Sally expected, and she enters a world of conflict and lawlessness. Sally confronts the secrets and scandals that hide in the shadows of the big house, navigates the factions in the family and town, and finally comes into her own as a bold, sometimes reckless bootlegger. You will fall in love with Sally Kincaid, a feisty and fearless, terrified and damaged young woman who refuses to be corralled. And that sounds like just my kind of character. So, Sally Kincaid, the book is Hang the Moon by Jeanette Walls. Let's see what's next. This next one is an interesting pick. I looked at it a little bit, and this is sort of out of the realm of what usually shows up in a Book of the Month box. So let's see what we've got here. This one is called Adelaide by Genevieve Wheeler. So here's Book of the Month's quick take. This raw, wrenching exploration of a toxic relationship and its aftermath doubles as an ode to the power of self-love. And it says, life is tragic. This book is melancholy. The Good to Know says it's a heavy read, it's sad, it's about female friendships, and there are no quotation marks, which is an interesting thing to have to tell us. So here we go. Adelaide by Genevieve Wheeler will be published April 18th, 2023 by St. Martin's Press, 304 pages. So it's a little smaller than some of the other ones. And here's the synopsis. For 26-year-old Adelaide Williams, an American living in dreamy London, meeting Rory Hughes was like a lightning bolt out of the blue. This charming Englishman was the one she wasn't even looking for. Is it enough? Does he respond to texts, honor his commitments, make advanced plans? Sometimes, rarely, and no, not at all. But when he shines his light on her, the world makes sense, and Adelaide is convinced that in his heart, he's fallen just as deeply as she has. Then, when Rory is rocked by an unexpected tragedy, Adelaide does everything in her power to hold him together, even if it means losing herself in the process. When love asks too much of us, how do we find the strength to put ourselves first? With unflinching honesty and heart, this relatable debut from a fresh new voice explores grief and mental health while capturing the timeless nature of what it's like to be young and in love, with your friends, with your city, and with a person who cannot, will not love you back. Ooh, that sounds really good too. That's what I said. This whole list this month is just really good. Okay, so let's look at the next one. Anna Maria and the Fox by Liana de la Rosa. And the quick take from Book of the Month is, in this sumptuous, swoony Victorian romance, an eldest daughter struggles with responsibility and the pull of her heart. The Good to Know says social issues, first in a series, salacious, and siblings. And here's what we know about the book. Anna Maria and the Fox, publishing on April 4th, 2023 by Berkeley, and it's 352 pages. So here's what we have. A forbidden love between a Mexican heiress and a shrewd British politician makes for a tantalizing Victorian season. Anna Maria Luna Valdez has strived to be the perfect daughter, the perfect niece, and the perfect representative of the powerful Luna family. So when Anna Maria is secretly sent to London with her sisters to seek refuge during the French occupation of Mexico, she experiences her first taste of freedom far from the judgmental eyes of her domineering father. If only she could ignore the piercing looks she receives across ballroom floors from the austere Mr. Fox. Gideon Fox elevates himself from the London gutters by chasing his burning desire for more opportunities, more choices, for everyone. Now as a member of Parliament, Gideon's on the cusp of securing the votes he needs to put forth a measure to abolish the Atlantic slave trade once and for all, a cause that is close to his heart as the grandson of a formerly enslaved woman. The charmingly vexing Anna Maria is a distraction he must ignore. But when Anna Maria finds herself in the crosshairs of a nefarious nobleman with his own political agenda, Gideon knows he must offer his hand as protection. But will this Mexican heiress win his heart as well? So a romance novel, a little bit historical, and sounds really good. So I don't know. I don't think any of the books that are available for the box this month are ones that I couldn't choose. Sometimes the box comes out and I think, but really all 7 books I could go for this month. So I would love to hear what you recommend. The next one is Advika and the Hollywood Wives by Krithana Ramasetti. And I think it's Advika. It could be Advika, but I'm going with Advika and the Hollywood Wives. The quick take from Book of the Month says, get a big bowl of popcorn ready. We've got it all here. Old Hollywood glamour, which I love, scorned lovers, paparazzi, and found family, which I'm also a big fan of. Okay, so the Good to Know says it's a feminist book. It includes millennials, marriage issues, and it's glamorous. And here is what we know about Advika and the Hollywood Wives. Publishing April 11th, 2023 by Grand Central Publishing, 384 pages. And here's what we know. A page-turning tale of marriage, scandal, and fame, perfect for readers of Taylor Jenkins Reid. And who's not a reader of Taylor Jenkins Reid? The glitz and underlying darkness of Hollywood make for a setting as complex and compelling as Ramasetti's characters. Rings with insight and with heart. That's from Mina Harris, the #1 New York Times bestselling author. At age 26, Advika Srinivasan considers herself a failed screenwriter. To pay the bills and keep her mind off of the recent death of her twin sister, she's taken to bartending A-list events, including the 2015 Governor's Ball, the official after-party of the Oscars. There, in a cinematic dream come true, she meets the legendary Julian Zelding, a film producer as handsome as Paul Newman and 10 times as powerful, fresh off his 5th Best Picture win. Despite their 41-year age difference, Advika falls helplessly under his spell, and their evening flirtation ignites into a whirlwind courtship and elopement. Advika is enthralled by Julian's charm and luxurious lifestyle, but while Julian loves to talk about his famous friends and achievements, he smoothly changes the subject whenever his previous relationships come up. Then, a month into their marriage, Julian's first wife, the famous actress Evie Lockhart, dies, and a tabloid reports a shocking stipulation in her will. A single film reel and $1 million will be bequeathed to Julian's latest child bride on one condition. Advika must divorce him first. Shaken out of her love fog and still simmering grief over the loss of her sister, and uneasy about Julian's sudden, inexplicable urge to start a family, Advika decides to investigate him through the eyes and experiences of his exes. From reading his first wife's biography to listening to his second wife's confessional albums to watching his third wife's Real Housewives-esque reality show, Advika starts to realize how little she knows about her husband. Realizing she rushed into the marriage for all the wrong reasons, Advika uses the info gleaned from the lives of her husband's exes to concoct a plan to extricate herself from Julian once and for all. So we went from a Saturday Night Live thing to the Oscars. This is pretty Hollywood and pretty exciting, glamorous, but a 41-year age difference in a marriage. I almost married a man who was 27 years older than I was, and that was a lot. So 41 is unreal. So we will see what happens to Advika and her relationship with Julian and the $1 million that Evie Lockhart, his first wife, has offered to bequeath to her as the latest child bride. So really curious about that one as well. Those are the 7 books from the Book of the Month Club this month. I can't wait to hear what you think I should choose. There are so many good choices. And I'd love to hear what you're going to choose. As I usually tell you, the Book of the Month Club is about $16.99 a month. So you end up paying with tax like $17.19. And that's one hardcover book, usually before it's published or a little before it's published. So you're getting it right away. The books are in really nice condition, well-bound, good quality hardback book with the Book of the Month label on them. It also always comes with a little bookmark with a quirky saying on it. And you can add up to 2 books, either from previous books of the month or 2 more books from this Book of the Month selection for $9.99 each. So it's a really good deal, and I highly recommend it. I do it every month and love it. So I can't wait to see you on my next video. I will be talking about some new books that I received from Goodreads. I also have some reviews to do and another bookshop to introduce you to, an indie bookstore in Tiffin, Ohio. So come back and we will see you soon. Take care. Bye.